a black man and steal it and say it's theirs. So then anytime you hear these great rentals, they have one in Toledo. You see. Anytime you have these great things, these great periods, this is nothing but just acquiescing the Moors. The Moors information, like take for instance, you would have different things that would happen, that would come about, like trying to give you some examples of your secret societies. What they would do is the secret societies was basically started by the Moors. Let me explain. The Knights Templars, York Rite, Scottish Rite, and all this. So let me explain how this came about. Because a lot of the doctrines after the Moors went to the secret societies too, and then they could sift out the greater knowledge and then give you the several liberal arts and stuff like that. But there's higher degrees of learning that now become the company of the lodge. Now let me explain how this lodge thing came about. The Moors came in. They created the 16 universities. That's what we can count. We don't know. Okay, let's say if you went to the university and then you got your regular learning, but then you would initiate into a fraternity. Well, the same thing happened in the Moor science was this. You would come in and they would give you the general learning, and then you would initiate into a higher degree of learning, which now would be the fraternities, which is a ceremonial thing, but at that particular time it was the Masonic orders. So your Masonic order would be equivalent to a fraternity in modern day. So when you went to these universities and stuff, and you got to a certain level, and you learned the general several liberal arts and stuff, and the general several stuff that you learn, which now is all the universities teach. After that, you would go into a Masonic order that was a part of the universities, or a secret society that is a part of the universities. You see what I'm saying? To learn higher degrees of knowledge. We see remnants of that now where you got the Skull and Bones at Yale. So the Skull and Bones at Yale, although you got the people from Yale, but you got a secret society, that all came from the Moors. So what would be the secret societies inside of the universities of the Moors? It would be the York Rite, Scottish Rite, all of these different ones. And then later on, groups like the Rosicrucians that would come up. And what they did is that they took all of this Moorish doctrines. And so a lot of the higher degree stuff became a ward of the Masonic orders. You see what I'm saying? But all this stuff is nothing but stuff that they learned from the Moors. You see, they learned from the Moors. And everything is a series of acquiescing somebody else's paradigms. So the Moors saw a vision. The Moors saw a vision of a country and a place by the setting sun that was not even a civilization yet. It hadn't even come into fruition. And the Moors set out to bring that city on a shining hill that Ronald Reagan talks about. In the West, they start America. That's why you so many presidents before George Washington's were all black. Those were Moors. So this whole system over here was set up, you see what I'm saying? By the Moors. And for some reason, because of the Moors conquering Europe, and the Moors being the origin of Americas, for some reason the people who benefited from that deemed the Moor, which means blackface one, or the blacker Moor, or it also means, because anytime you hear the word Sufi, that's another word for the Moors. The word Sufi means woolly-haired one. So instead of saying they'll separate Sufi from the Moor. The Moor was a woolly-haired one. You see, and some reason I don't know if it was after Spain. C. Manel calls it Manichaeism, racism, with Queen Isabella and those particular ones. They deemed the Moor the enemy.
Who?
The European secret societies that were started by the Moors.
Okay.
You see, it was started by the Moors. For some reason, it's almost as if to say, because you are our teacher, you have to be our enemy.
Is this why during initiation
they come in, like Dr. Ben said, when the white Masons or the white secret societies, what they do is whenever their initiates or their neophytes cross over into the initiated, the first thing they do is bring a black man in from wherever, blindfolded, and say, "This is your father. Always hold him down."
Why?
They know that civilization originated with us. They know that they are the latter part of that. For some reason, they feel that the only way they can rule is to keep the initiators of civilization down. It's some sick, demented way of thinking. It's a fear, xenophobia. This particular fear, we got to coin a new term for it. It's not the fear of xenophobia is the fear of a person that's unlike you, different cultures or what have you. We got to coin a new phrase that has to be into the lexicon, and that is a word that will say, you fear a person that you deem is greater than you.
That is correct.
And that's the difference here.
Yeah.
They fear us, and they say that we are the enemies not because we are different. We are the enemies because we are the initiators of civilization, and we gave them all that they have. You see, if you build a TV, you build an airplane, you build anything, the blueprints on what you might later day come to build these things, you got the technology from earlier people. Now you might expound upon it to the point where it's useful to the time you're living in, but nevertheless you were not the authors of the blueprint. You were not the master builder. We are the master builders. So you have a fear of our greatness.
Yes.
And because you fear our greatness, you say, we always have to be an enemy because they figure our rise is their fall.
Correct.
You see. So they feel that they can be around as long as they want to, as long as we don't rise. And what they don't realize, here it goes again. They are thinking that we're going to do to them like they do to us, because they think that humans think like them. No. You see what I'm saying? Your mother and your father, just like our mothers and fathers, would not treat us the same way as a child would treat somebody. You see. And basically, they're incapable of love. Now, I'm not talking about a sensation, because that word is thrown around a lot. You see, I'm not talking about the way somebody make you feel, and you and you basically react based on this person is giving you a chemical reaction and make you feel a certain way. No, we're talking about reacting based on the way you feel about somebody. It's different. Mm-hmm. See, if you only reply to me based on the way I make you feel, you see what I'm saying? That's selfish. Mm-hmm. And it's selfish because you don't know how to feel about somebody, even the fact that they never made you feel a certain way. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You know, so it's the same, so it's this thing, it's this fear that they feel that the society that they're going to be in has to be based on keeping the architects down. Mm-hmm. Number one, you got to keep them down because you stole every damn thing from them. Just for that to come out. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Would make you feel inferior. Now, we're thinking like them. We wouldn't think that you're inferior if you inherited a civilization that we put together, but you think that you're inferior. You see what I'm saying? If you told the people, no, they're the architects of this thing. So it's some psychological sick and twisted stuff. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, what we have a problem with is understanding people's thoughts, people's mentalities, people's temperament. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And we as black people get caught up in that because we think that they think like us. Yeah. You see. But all this had to be, all this stuff had to be in the particular aspect because, let me give you said, well, why does this have to be this way? Well, look, let's just take the Moors. Because some people say, well, we might have had another history if the Moors didn't go into Spain and go into Europe and educate them. Well, let's look at it this way. If we knew we were going into a state of dormancy, going to sleep, civilization was going to go out of our hands, based on just age, based on, like Dr. Ben said, time just ran out.
Seasons.
If we knew this, wouldn't you rather, and you knew a younger, savage people going to take over, wouldn't you try to want to educate them? So whenever you start to wake up out of your dormancy, you would have some sense of education and some sense of civilization. It's not the perfect. It's only a shadow of what we did. But can you imagine what would happen if you didn't educate him at all? Oh, yeah. And you came out of your dormancy and he's taking over the world. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In barbarism. Mm-hmm. So we knew if we didn't educate them, mm-hmm. You see, then when we did start to wake up, we wouldn't even have a pseudo-education. We wouldn't have anything. Mm-hmm. If we just get back a part of what we gave them, there's things in us that we can preserve. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And be at a better position. Yep. We can look at the white man and say he came from the caves and preserved some stuff from us and started ruling. We got to have something. So we were advanced enough to see the future, know that we had to do certain things. You see. Because if we didn't give these children this, when we did wake up from out of our dormancy, we wouldn't have nothing. Look how bad it is when we woke up. Yeah. Can you imagine if he didn't get shit? Nothing. Mm-hmm. You see. So, our pyramids, from the Pharaohs to Negroes, you understand? Yeah. In so many words, it's not necessarily a tragedy as it is a process. Now, going back to a timeline, if you rule for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, mm-hmm. What transpired in the last 2,000 years is a recess.